Hello, hello. Thank you for everybody being here. I'm going to go ahead and play the intro just in case somebody comes in. I was running just a few minutes late, was hanging out in Steve True Crime Web. I'm going to drop his link real quick. He's finishing up, but I wanted to say my farewells before I ended my chat over there. So if you guys are not subbed up to True Crime Web, make sure you go hit up True Crime Web. And I may end up just sitting here and covering this case by myself. Everybody's at CrimeCon. I'm supposed to be at CrimeCon, but not able to go till tomorrow. So super excited about going to CrimeCon tomorrow. But I did want to go ahead and cover this case. This case is a case that my daughter-in-law, my soon-to-be daughter-in-law, actually brought to me, the Toolbox Killers. This is an older case. It is two girls are still missing from this case. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up All right, so I'm going to start this out with a handful of photos first, just so we can kind of get an idea what we're looking at here. So this is a case, and like I said, this is an older case out of California. This case is from the 70s, but like I said, two of these girls are still missing, so I feel like it's very important to bring their story. And again, my daughter-in-law actually brought this to my attention, so I want to make sure that I give a big shout out to her for bringing this to my attention. So I'm not going to give out a lot of trigger warnings. I'm just going to tell you ahead of time this is gruesome. There's going to be gruesome audio. We're going to watch a documentary. And hi, FarQ. Hi, Kimmy. Welcome in. So this is a very, very disturbing case. And like I said, I'm not going to hand out a bunch of trigger warnings, but I do want to go ahead and show these videos. So these guys were using this van to abduct girls. Pretty sick. They were both convicted of murder. And this was a postcard. I actually hit this guy up on Twitter to see if I could get him to come on panel. I never did hear back, which a lot of people are at CrimeCon. This is a picture of the girls. And Laura Brand actually has a channel. She doesn't have very many subs, but she is the private investigator that actually went to the prison. And sorry, I did not mean to pull that one up. So that was not related. The Facebook dig. So sorry about that. But if you're interested, that was from where I was digging into a person of interest that was mentioned in the 136-page Delphi document that was shared. I tend to creep and dig and creep and dig and creep and dig, so that's where that came from. So I apologize. That was not meant to be shared, but I didn't dox anybody. The defense doxed that man. So where do I want to start here? I have a documentary that I want to start with first, I believe. Actually, you know what? Let's see which one. Figure out which one is which. Is it this one? Let me see if it's this one. I should have put these on a notepad. I apologize, guys.
Web design, e-commerce, online
we're
advertising,
not listening to an
SEO.
ad. Sorry about that. Rude much. So this is a confession.
And
like I said, I'm not going to
No, sir.
hand out trigger warnings. I'm going to back this up, and I'm just going to let you know ahead of time, this is extremely graphic. And the recording that you're going to hear is extremely graphic, and then I actually have a transcript that I want to read. So this is about the toolbox killers. The bodies of Mrs. Hall and Mrs. Schaefer were never found. These two girls are still missing. In total, Bittaker and Norris killed 5 women in a 5-month span in 1979. Lucinda Cindy Schaefer, 16, Andrea Hall, 18, Jacqueline Gillum, 15, Jacqueline Lee Camp, 13, Shirley Lynette Ledford, 16. The Los Angeles Times reported in 1989 the remains of Gillum, Lamp, and Ledford were all eventually found. So like I said, 2 of these girls are still missing. So I do feel like it's important to spread their stories, spread their names, and I guess just for sake of purposes, I'll put a trigger warning on the screen just so you guys are well aware that this is going to be extremely graphic. If audio is something that you're sensitive to, I'd say mute because it's going to get pretty graphic here in just a few minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video.
Did you at any time ever use an ice pick? No, sir. You struck Miss Lamp with a sledgehammer. You recall the sledgehammer which was introduced? Yes, sir, I recall it. Was that true? No, sir.
Lawrence Bittaker, with an IQ of 138, dragged high school girls into his van, then murdered them by twisting a coat hanger around their throat with a pair of pliers. When his tape recording of one murder was played in court, people rushed outside and vomited.
I touched Miss Ledford on the breast with cold metal pliers. And if you listen to the tape, you'll hear those pliers being replaced in the toolbox a few seconds later.
Oh, what did you touch her on the breast for with a pair of pliers?
To shock her with the cold metal.
You probably know.
Muted. I was muted. Wonderful. So we're going to try this again. So I'm going to share this page. Present screen share. And let's see if I can do this without screwing anything up too bad. I may have to hardwire in while this is playing, guys. So if the live glitches for a minute, it's where I'm hardwiring in. Yeah, give me just a second. I'm going to hardwire in. It says this file contains extremely graphic court testimony concerning the crimes and rape and murder of completely. I'm not going to play the music because I don't want to get struck for an intro. It'll be over here in just a second, guys. So this is California in the 70s. I think it was in the 70s. This might have been, no, this is 2014. I don't know when this clip was done. I'm going to say it's not current time.
Of the Bittaker murders.
Okay, so he's talking, so I'll kind of try to talk over him.
20 years later, I found myself in Hermosa Beach, California. I presume that Lawrence Bittaker must have died in prison or been executed. I was stunned to find out that Bittaker was very much alive, on death row at San Quentin. After hearing more details about Norris and Bittaker, I decided to find out exactly why Bittaker's sentence had never been carried out.
hopefully that's still playing for you guys. Let me check StreamYard because I just hardwired in. So hopefully it'll be a lot better. Yeah, this is an extremely sick case. Like this case is sick, sick, sick. Like seriously. Like just reading into it, it just blew my mind how sick these guys were. I mean, a lot of these cases will blow your mind. With the music, I think it's over now.
Having been part of this trial is a painful experience, and people have asked me, well, you were on the Manson case. That has to be the worst ever. No, this is the worst ever, because these were children.
Yeah, this is a sick case, guys. These are kids, all underage
These
girls except one.
were all nice girls. Nobody had a criminal record or anything. They were girls that you would be proud of to have as your daughter.
Lured by monsters. And you have to keep in mind,
Kay described the defendant as a brilliant man with an IQ of 138, but an extremely violent man. He told the jury that Bittaker was the mastermind behind the kidnapping, rape, and murder of the 5 girls. Kay also described in detail how Bittaker tortured some of his victims with pliers and ice picks. 2 of the bodies never were found.
it's how they got the
Defense
name
attorney Albert
Toolbox
Garber claimed
Killers.
that Roy Norris, the chief prosecution witness, should be on trial, not Bittaker. Garber claimed that Norris is a sex deviant who derives sexual pleasure from terrorizing his victims. Norris has pleaded guilty to the same charges, but agreed to testify against Bittaker to escape the death penalty.
On November 1st, 1979, in the early morning hours, a jogger got to this spot where she discovered the nude, lacerated body of a teenage female. This
Could you
discovery
imagine?
would lead to the arrest and investigation of 2 ex-convicts for her murder and the murder of 4 other young girls.
Of course, the only body we had in this case that was found right off the bat was Lynette Ledford, because Bittaker wanted to see the reaction of the press.
Facts. Monsters. Hence the channel name.
While serving time in prison, Norris and Bittaker came up with the idea of murdering and raping young girls, 1 for each year, ranging from 12 to 18. Lawrence Sigmund Bittaker was a 39-year-old parolee who had been released from the California Men's Colony at San Luis Obispo in November of 1978. He had served less than 4 years after pleading guilty to the lesser charge of assault with a deadly weapon after stabbing a supermarket employee in the chest in an attempt to avoid an arrest for shoplifting. Bittaker had an extensive criminal record, having spent 18 of the prior 20 years in state custody for 11 separate convictions, despite an IQ of 138 and a $1,000 a week job as a skilled machinist. A psychiatric examination in 1975 had diagnosed Bittaker with personality disorder, antisocial personality, severe.
Joseph Jackson was a friend of both Norris and Bittaker.
Norris met Jackson while both were confined for rape convictions at a Tuscadero State Mental Hospital.
After Norris and Bittaker got out of prison, they got together with Jackson. They started going around photographing young teenage girls, especially down in the Strand area.
Always crowded with teenage women.
Thank you,
It would
Kimmy.
be the perfect location for Norris, Bittaker, and Jackson to search out potential victims. In early November, Norris confided in Jackson that Norris and Bittaker had actually murdered some of these young girls. Jackson became afraid for both his 13 and 17-year-old daughters and for his own life. He went to various law enforcement entities.
Sheriff's Homicide had the position, well, where are the bodies?
Because Jackson couldn't provide the locations of any bodies, most of the law enforcement entities had no interest in his information.
But the LAPD detective that was meeting with him said, well, look, you say these murders happen in the South Bay. Why don't you call the South Bay agencies and see if any of the police out there are interested?
Finally, He went to Paul Bynum of the Hermosa Beach Police Department.
Pass the buck.
He was the first person to take Joseph Jackson's information seriously. The first thing that he did was that he decided to place Roy Norris under surveillance. And within a matter of days, Norris was observed loading baggies with marijuana in his Redondo Beach apartment. Because that was a parole violation, Norris was placed under arrest. After Bittaker's arrest, his van was impounded and an exhaustive search turned up numerous items of evidence, including a cassette tape. Norris presumed that he would eventually be charged with these crimes, so partially out of fear of the death penalty and partially out of guilt for what he had done, he agreed to accept a plea deal and testify against Lawrence Bittaker.
And both of these guys got the death penalty, and you're going to learn
On
later on in the
28th of
documentary
November,
they died
I received a call
of natural causes.
Bynum told me that Roy Norris wanted to talk to me about some murders. I said, Roy Norris? I know that name. And I said, let me see his rap sheet. And I looked at his rap sheet and I said, this is the guy that I convicted of forcible rape of a Torrance housewife in January of 1976. And he got a sentence of 3 years to life. And that means they let him out after 3 years. He was in a Atascadero State Mental Hospital for 5 years and was let out 3 months before raping the Torrance housewife. And the psychiatrist at Atascadero said, oh, he was fine, no problem. And so they let him out. Now, the reason he was in Atascadero, he had accosted a female student on the campus of San Diego State, didn't say a thing to her, walked up to her, knocked her to the ground, got on top of her, grabbed her by the hair and started bashing her head into the concrete. The first words out of Norris's mouth were, I want to plead to a second-degree murder. That told me he was guilty of murder and just wanted to make a deal. We went into the jury room, tape recorded about a 3-hour statement of Roy Norris. He proceeded to tell us about 5 murders. It was, so detailed and so horrendous.
You have to understand in cases like this, when you have 2 people that are participating in murder, I mean, who else is there but those 2 people? And sometimes you have to rely on one of them and try and make your best determination as to which one is the least culpable and which one's telling the truth.
Welcome in, Sean.
The details of Norris's confession finally allowed Steve Kay to receive full support from the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department.
I said, I've got to bring sheriff's homicide in on this. This is just too big a case for you guys that are most to handle. This was a completely different type of murder case. Here, we knew who the guilty parties were, but we didn't have any bodies. We found out, yeah, okay, we did have a body, Lynette Ledford, out in the Sunland, Tahunga area.
These
the
guys are
notorious
true
tape of Lynette
sickos.
Ledford was an actual recording of Norris and Bittaker violently assaulting her. This tape was so graphic that when Steve Kay played it for each of Roy Norris's attorneys, one demanded that he shut it off, and the other ran out of his office.
One of the attorneys got up and ran out of the library, and I didn't see him for 3 months afterwards. And the other one asked me to please turn off the tape. I feel that he did come forward and tell Joseph Jackson about the murders because he was feeling guilty, remorseful. So I took a plea to Norris to all the charges. I wanted 50 to life. Of course, there was no question that if Norris testified that he was going to get out of the death penalty.
As the result of his plea deal, Norris was willing to lead law enforcement to the locations of the bodies.
There are a lot of jurors that if you're trying a murder case, they want to see the body of the victims. We went to Glendora Ridge Motorway and wanted Norris to point out where he and Bittaker had thrown Cindy Schaefer. well, we didn't find anything as far as Cindy was concerned. We went down with members of the Sierra Madre Search and Rescue Team, and the area was overgrown. And I had a doctor
Welcome in,
next to
Tiptoe.
me, and there was a trail of bones. He would
Thank you for
say,
being
okay,
here.
that's a femur. Here is
If you guys
arm
haven't
bone,
already, please hit
and
that like button. It
there
helps
was
get
a
the video out into the
skull,
algorithm.
missing the lower jaw, but had the upper teeth. That turned out to be Leah Lamp, and we identified that from dental records. Then we found another skull. It was missing all teeth, but it had an ice pick embedded in it through where the ear canal would be. I figured after the mountain searches that we really weren't going to find anything more because we were having torrential rains. Part of Glendora Mountain Road had even been washed out. There is no way that if we had come up a week later that we would have ever found the remains of Jackie and Leah, because they just would have been washed away.
Yep, and we see that in a lot of
After that,
cases.
at the end of February, I filed all the murder charges.
Because of a conflict with the public defender's office, Judge Thomas Fredericks asked Albert Garber, a prominent lawyer, to defend Lawrence Bittaker. Garber was the president of a local Criminal Defense Attorneys Association.
This case is based primarily on the testimony of the co-defendant, who obviously made a deal.
She spent the whole summer with us. Very warm, very loving. He thought Cindy was just tops. She told me when I invited her to come that she would like to be able to get a job and work through the summer. She interviewed for the job that she took. St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church at the corner of Avenue D and Pacific Coast Highway to attend the Senior High Fellowship meeting. I let her out of the car in front of the church at 7:25.
How scary is that, to drop off your daughter and never see her again? And like I said, guys, this is 1979 case, but two of these girls are still missing, so I feel like it's important. And like I said, my awesome soon-to-be daughter-in-law did bring this to my attention, and I kind of remember this, but I was born in 79.
As he was driving around the block, right, he told me about this young blonde walking up the northbound on the Pacific Coast Highway. She looked cute to him, about the right age and all, 16 or 17, and blonde. I prefer blondes.
Yes, Sean, you're right. I believe it was her that was
So Cindy
Helen.
Schaefer, after leaving the church, proceeded to this street, where she made a right turn. Bittaker and Norris basically proceeded to follow her.
They figured out the pathway she was taking. They parked at the bottom of the hill.
So this is a police photograph of the site where Roy Norris actually abducted Cindy Schaefer. Basically, the van was probably parked somewhere along here. Sure enough, a few minutes later, Cindy Schaefer proceeded down this sidewalk. Norris pretended to be working on a light switch, and Bittaker sat at the wheel of the van.
Well, it was my decision on whether or not to try and grab her and make her a victim. I waited for her to walk past me. She didn't, of course, didn't expect anything. She just walked right on by. I ran behind her and grabbed her. I put my hand over her mouth.
It's kind of eerie to look at this photograph and know that you're standing on the spot of something that so terrible that happened.
The moment we were inside the van, Larry drove off in a hurry. Larry turned up the volume of the radio so that any screams would be drowned out by the radio itself.
I agree, Kimmy. Beautiful girls. And we can't do the music because YouTube will get me.
Ankles, so she was face down on her stomach.
She said her name was Cindy. I asked how old she was. She said she was 15. I asked where she lived. She said she lived in Redondo Beach with her grandmother, and that her mother was in Mexico City.
We're driving up into the Angeles National Forest above the city of Glendora, California. We're on the route that Bittaker and Norris took to the sites where they murdered 4 out of 5 of their victims. Today we'll go to the exact spots and literally walk in the footsteps of not only Roy Norris and Lawrence Bittaker, but also their victims as well. When you go to the sites themselves, you begin to wonder, what was it like for them to actually go through this whole process?
It had to be horrific. It had to
When
be
we
terrifying.
initially pulled up to the gate, Larry got out and unlocked the gate. I drove the van through the gate and around the first bend and stopped.
So this is the fire road that Norris and Bittaker drove the van.
Norris said they took her out to the San Gabriel Mountains and they held her prisoner for the rest of the evening.
By the time I thought she really ought to be home, it was late enough that I didn't call anyone because there wasn't anything they could do about it anyway at that time of the night.
Imagine for a moment, you're Cindy Schaefer. You're headed down this very fire road in the back of Lawrence Bittaker's van.
You're right, 4Q. Very
bound and
isolated,
gagged,
and it would have been pitch
and you have
black
no
at night.
idea what's going to happen to you.
He came back to the van and told me to get in the back and get the girl ready.
And these are all young girls.
Undress her and tell her that she was going to get raped. She said she would do anything as long as we didn't hurt her.
Like, these guys are
Finally started to
sickos.
delve more into the case. I actually got a court transcript. None of it ever really seemed real to me until I got to this spot, this yellow firebox, which is described specifically in the court testimony.
A small clearing near a yellow box, a metal box, I believe. I think it's a fire hydrant. I'm not sure.
He backed the van up, backed it up against this yellow firebox. He was facing out
That
on the
was
fire road in case they
photo
had
I
to
was
rapid
showing
exit.
you guys earlier.
And they had a lengthy discussion as to who would be the first person to rape Cindy Schaefer.
Thank you for everybody for being
He
here.
suggested that I did because I was the one who took all the risk. I began my rape of Cindy.
The rest of the evening, they both raped her multiple times. And at some point, she figured that she was in deep trouble and asked Norris, "Are you going to kill me?" Norris said, "Oh, no, no, no. We're going to give you some marijuana and everything will be cool."
I tried to tell her I was sorry for what I had done or what we had done. I told her that we would pay her. I wrote down my name on a sheet of paper and my address and phone number in case she would ever want anything that I could do to pay her back, you know.
Norris and Bittaker got out of the van again, and together they had a 90-minute discussion, ultimately with Bittaker convincing Norris that no, they couldn't spare Cindy Schaefer, they would have to kill her.
She said, "If you're going to kill me, will you let me pray before you kill me?" Well, they didn't even let her pray.
Yeah, sick. Just asked to pray and wasn't
Bittaker
even.
lifted her off the ground so she couldn't get traction. And Norris came up and strangled her. He saw her crying and gasping for breath, and he couldn't do it any longer. And he went over and threw up and
Definitely have to look
picked
up that
his
case,
false teeth
Sean.
out of his vomit.
Okay,
Bittaker
4Q.
got
Take
a
care of the
coat hanger
baby.
out of the back of the van, wrapped it around her neck, and then tightened it with vice grips.
Yeah, I can turn it up.
To the point where he killed her, and the hanger cut into her throat.
Is that better, Kimmy?
She had a guitar and was actually taking guitar lessons and had that Sunday during the day. She'd practiced her guitar and was on the bed with her music just as she had left it when she finished her practicing. She had a quart fruit jar almost full of nickels and dimes and pennies and even dollars that was on the top shelf in the closet of her bedroom.
They drove the van to this spot. They opened the door, grabbed Cindy Schaefer's body, and with a heave-ho motion, tossed her into this canyon.
Norris all of a sudden stopped and said, "Oh no, there was a girl, and I don't even remember her name, but she didn't turn me on that much, so I don't even remember her name, but she was second."
Norris and Bittaker's second victim was a girl by the name of Andrea Hall, who they picked up hitchhiking.
Oh, I got you.
A
I had
giant
it
ate
turned
through on the way
down
to
so
the
I could
beach.
talk over, so that way
Manhattan Beach
YouTube
at
doesn't
McDonald's
get
is
me
where
for
we
not
stopped
doing
and parked.
commentary.
Andrea was going to go to Redondo Beach after we'd eaten. She was going to hitchhike. She was going to go onto Ray's house, her boyfriend's.
They were out looking for victims again, and they saw this blonde hitchhiking on the other side of the street in front of a Kentucky Colonel.
This is the spot where Lawrence Bittaker decided that he wanted to get Andrea Hall into his van. Bittaker and Norris were heading south on Sepulveda towards Manhattan Beach, and they spotted Andrea Hall standing right there in front of the Kentucky Fried Chicken, which is long gone.
He told me to go and get in the back at that point. I went to the rear of the van, hid underneath the bed in the van, behind the green
Look at the
bedspread.
tree. It looks
hanging
like
all the way
hands.
down to
It's
the
super
floor.
creepy.
Larry continued to pull over and ask Andrea
Just adds
if
that
she
creep
wanted a
factor.
ride. She said yes and got in.
To signal Norris to take action, Bittaker would ask a potential victim if she wanted a cold drink from a cooler at the rear of the van.
He finally asked her if she wanted something cold to drink.
"Well, do you want to go in back and get a cold drink? I got a cooler back there, and just help yourself." And she said, "Sure."
I was looking through the bedspread as much as I could see through it, and she opened the cooler and grabbed a drink of some type. I came from underneath the bedspread. She saw me. She began to scream and made a mad dash for the front of the van.
And she was fighting furiously, but Norris was large.
She finally quit struggling, and she said she would do anything we wanted, as long as we didn't hurt her.
They took her up again to the Glendora Mountain Road, to the Upper Monroe Truck Trail. Bittaker said, "Well, you know, since you were first last time, I want to be first this time."
Andrea Hall was raped in 2 separate locations in the hills above Glendora. Initially, Norris and Bittaker raped her while Bittaker photographed her with a Polaroid camera.
He said he wanted to rape her again and take some more photos. I told him I wanted to get home earlier that night than I had the night with Cindy.
Norris was not happy about how late they were getting back sometimes, because he said he would be really tired when he would go to work. Bittaker said, "Well, I'm not finished yet,
Norris drove Bittaker to another location.
so drop me off here, and I'll call you on the walkie-talkie when I'm ready to have you pick me up."
He told me to pull into a spot where you would park on the right side of the road.
This is the mound where Norris left Lawrence Bittaker and Andrea Hall. He proceeded back down the road towards town, while Andrea Hall and Lawrence Bittaker made their way up the side of this mound.
He got Andrea outside of the van and had her holding a lot of items. He opened up his toolbox and took out the ice pick. He made a motion for me to look at it, but not to say anything. He turned around and led her into a spot.
Because she knew I worried about her and where she went to hitchhike, so she always called and let me know that she was okay, what she was doing. She didn't call.
This is the exact spot where Lawrence Bittaker took Andrea Hall, raped her again, and then killed her.
He told me he was ready to be picked up, and he had already taken care of business.
This time, when he came down to the van, Andrea wasn't with him. Bittaker showed Norris some more photographs that he had taken.
It was on this spot that Lawrence Bittaker took his last 2 photographs of Andrea Hall.
One of them looked like Andrea with a terrified expression on her face.
He was showing me that one and said, "This is when I told her I was going to kill her." Another identically the same without the gag, and she had a look of desperation, I guess, on her face.
Norris said, "Well, how did you get that expression on her face?" And Bittaker said, "Well, I told her that I was going to kill her, but that I would listen to any reasons that she gave why I shouldn't."
He said she couldn't come up with too many reasons.
Well, my Nightbot's supposed to drop my email, but I'll type it in, guys.
After Lawrence Bittaker killed Andrea Hall, he picked up her body, walked to the edge of the canyon, and tossed her off the cliff.
August 29th was my daughter's 14th birthday. And we took all the kids and we went to Shakey's Pizza. And then we came back to the house and Jackie and Leah were arguing over this little boy. So I finally went in the room and I said, "Leah, honey," I said, "you're going to have to go home because you guys are arguing." And she lived 2 doors away. And then I felt so bad and I walked over to see Leah and I gave her a hug and a kiss. And I said, "I love you, honey. I'm sorry I didn't mean to hurt your feelings." And then also the same night, Jackie comes up to Chuck and I, and she gave us a hug, and she says, "I love you guys." She said, "I wish you were my parents." They were just wonderful, sweet girls.
My wife, Terry, talked about her friend Ingrid before we ever moved to California.
Jackie was staying with those people because Terry Dichtel and Jackie's mom were best friends. So this was like a pre-starting high school vacation.
Jackie and Leah had been staying with us for a while, and that particular morning, Jackie and Leah asked me if they could go ahead down to the beach. And I asked them, I said, "Well, how are you going to get there?" And they said, "Well, we'll take the bus." That was the last time I saw them, Jackie and Leah, alive.
They were in front of a bus stop bench on Pier Avenue. They were obviously going to the beach. They had one had a beach towel, the other had a tapestry.
The bus bench where Jackie and Leah were sitting was probably somewhere right along here in this location. And Norris and Bittaker were parked at that stoplight right over there on Pacific Coast Highway. When they spotted Leah and Jackie, they pulled up, asked them if they wanted to ride down to the beach in their van.
We pulled over to the bus stop where these girls were standing. I asked them if they wanted to ride, and they said yes.
They got in the van right here, and they thought they were going down to the beach in that direction. But instead, they were headed for something very different.
I got out of the van, opened the sliding door on the side, and they both jumped in on the floor.
Thank you, Sean.
I shut the
I'll
door.
check it out after the
Bittaker
live.
pulled away from the curb and started toward the beach on Pier Avenue.
And when I lived in Hermosa Beach, on my way to work, I would pass the spot every day, and it would never fail to make me think about Jackie and Leah.
He nodded to me that the littlest one, which was Jackie, of course, he wanted her.
Thank you for everybody being here. I had to turn
I
off
wanted her as a
subscribers
victim
mode
also.
only
She
because
looked
two
young and
very,
cute.
very
I
important
asked
people
the
to me
girls
are not
if
able
they
to
wanted
chat.
anything
And
drink.
I don't like that.
So
So
I got
if
out of
any
the
trolls come
passenger
in
seat,
for Q, you
walked
know
to
how
the
to
rear of
sling
the
your
van
wrench,
where
ma'am.
the cooler was at, picked up a homemade sap, and struck Leah a lamp on the right side of her head. I swung pretty hard, I thought, and I expected her to be knocked out for a couple of hours, so I didn't put any real value on her at all as far as causing any problems, and I immediately grabbed Jackie. He turned the radio up just in case. He stepped on the gas, turned a few corners, I believe, dash for the side door. I yelled to Bittaker. He hit the brakes on the van and ran around the front of the van. By that time, Leah had the side door of the van open and was getting ready to jump out, and he hit her, punched her. She fell back inside. She was screaming. I mean, she was hysterical. He told me when he got back in the van that he told these people that were watching from a tennis court that she was having a bad trip on acid. She said, "Don't hurt me. I don't want to be hit again."
Could you imagine tripping?
I taped up Jackie and gagged her,
and be abducted?
then I taped up Leah and I gagged her.
When Bittaker and Norris kidnapped Leah and Jackie, it was a hot summer day. They drove back up into the mountains. Because it was so hot, they searched this road for a long period of time.
The van's air conditioning was on, but you wouldn't know it. We were looking for some shade if possible. There was a large tree that gave shade in the early morning and part of the afternoon.
After hours of heading up Glendora Mountain Road, finally Bittaker and Norris came to this large shade tree.
Hello, my
Bittaker
love.
backed up the van as far as he
So
could.
Maya's the reason why we're
in an attempt to
watching
get out
this
of the hot
live
sun.
tonight. So big shout out to
Here he would
Maya.
rape Jackie for the next 2.5 hours while Norris photographed him
Crime
with a Polaroid
Curious.
camera.
Hello, beautiful. Yes, these guys are sick.
Jackie
This is horrible.
had a black eye and a swollen side
Okie
of the
dokie.
face where Bittaker had hit her.
He slapped her hard enough to leave a red impression on the side of her face.
My lovely,
He told
beautiful
her that
soon-to-be
that was
daughter-in-law.
kind
You
of
guys,
to
you
give
brought
her an
this
idea
case
of
to my
what would
attention.
happen if he caught her in a lie. At that point, she said she wasn't 13, but 15.
Bittaker said to her, "Well, I can see that you're in pain when I'm doing this, and feel free to express your agony." And she said, "Well, you told me that I was supposed to act like I was enjoying it." He said, "Oh no, that's okay. Scream your head off." So Norris took these pictures, everything imaginable. I want you to take some pornographic pictures of me and Jackie.
That
He
link
just
that
asked
just
me to
dropped
get
is
the
Jen's
tape
link.
recorder,
Crime Curious.
which I
If you're
did.
not subbed
He
up,
said he
go
wanted to
sub
tape the
and
raping
or if I didn't
virgin.
say hello, hi, my love. And
This poor 13-year-old had to watch all of this that was happening to Jackie, and she was just in tears and shaking, but they didn't rape her.
She was quiet, and every time I looked at her, she looked like she was pleading or something with me. I didn't like to look at her.
My daughter comes to me and she says, "Mom, can I go ahead down to the beach?"
you are
and
so welcome,
meet
my
the
love.
girls? I said, "Yeah, go ahead. We'll be right there." Well, she turns around and comes right back and she says, "Mom, they're not there." I said, "What do you mean they're not there?" So immediately we went down and we're looking for the girls. We looked all over. We couldn't find them. We came back. We called the police and they wouldn't do anything. So again, at midnight, we called the police. They still wouldn't do anything. So I called Ingrid the next morning and I told her that her daughter was missing. And she came out and her and I went to all the beaches everywhere looking. And us were there. My ex-in-laws were coming to visit to see the grandchildren and they were there. And I was just I was a disaster. They were like my
With the sun going down, Lawrence Bittaker proceeded down this road. In the back, Jackie, her ankles bound, sat on a bed. Next to her was Leah, who had already watched Lawrence Bittaker rape Jackie for several hours while Roy Norris photographed her with a Polaroid camera.
So these two decided that they were going to spend the night there and take turns sleeping and standing guard.
We talked about her, the pain she had gone through, and that we would give her a period of time to rest.
Such
before
beautiful
we raped her
girls.
again. We would get some sleep, and he would sleep next to Jackie.
And in my opinion, these two sick
He
fuckers
was
died in
testifying
prison, so they didn't get
as
their
if
justice.
He was a male. on your car.
Sorry about my swamp signal if it's cutting out for you guys. I'm hardwired in, so I don't know what's going on. There might be a It says Bittaker and Norris then returned to the shade tree where Bittaker graped and photographed. Bittaker and Norris retrieved Leah and headed back down the trail, Upper Moreau truck trail. They told the girls they would take them home soon.
On the night the girls disappeared, I had a horrible dream. I saw the devil, and I never had a dream like that.
No, these two assholes got to die naturally, and I don't feel like
they
that
were only
was
a couple
fair.
hours from returning home, suddenly Jackie Gilliam and Leah Lamp got to this spot on the Upper
I'm from
Moreau
Kentucky.
truck
We
trail.
frown.
He told Bittaker she's really tried to be very cooperative after you hit her, and we ought to let her go.
Sorry, Dolly. Like I said, I'm on swamp
He
signal,
tried to
guys. I'm
talk him out
hardwired
of,
in, so it's
killing
probably
Jackie
just a storm.
Gilliam. As a matter of fact, Norris promised Jackie that he was going to buy her a moped so that she wouldn't have to hitchhike anymore and give her some money. He said he even wrote down his phone number for her to call.
At one point in the evening, I suggested that if and when he killed her, to do it quickly, because she'd been so helpful in this whole thing. He said he didn't really see any reason for doing it quickly, since they only die once anyway.
Sean, I don't think there was any witnesses watching them getting assaulted.
where
They did this
Bittaker
out in
parked the
the
van.
pretty
Norris,
out
knowing
there
what was
part
going
of
to happen
California.
next, got out of the van, headed down the road in this direction. Bittaker got a pair of vice grips and an ice pick and started to torture Jackie Gilliam. Norris was able to hear Jackie scream almost 50 feet away from the van. Norris returned to the van and saw Bittaker, who had removed Jackie to the side of the road, strangling her.
Thank you, everybody, for
After
being
Jackie
here.
had died, Bittaker returned, opened the door of the van, and got Leah, who had been passed out on the bed from sleeping pills, and escorted her, saying that this is the last time you'll leave the van before we take you home. Instead, Bittaker took a sledgehammer and hit her in the back of the head. When she fell down, he picked her up and started to strangle her. Norris continued to hit her with the sledgehammer. Bittaker and Norris took Leah to the edge of this cliff and threw her. They then returned to Jackie's body, dragged her over, and threw her off. Norris and Bittaker then got back into the van and returned to their homes.
Just discarded her like she was
Next
nothing.
day, they would return
Monsters.
to work after their Labor Day holiday.
The last victim was on Halloween.
There you go, the
She worked at
Halloween.
McDonald's up on Foothill Boulevard. Her and her brother had dinner up there, and then I brought her home. It was Halloween night, and she was going to a Halloween party. She'd been dressed in a Halloween costume, but didn't want to wear one at night. So she just wore her Levi's and a dark long-sleeve shirt. At about 7 o'clock, I took her over to her friend Ruth Torres's house.
We went to a party around 8 o'clock for 2 hours, and we got a ride with some people at the party, 2 boys. They went to the gas station. They asked for money, so I gave it to them. They wanted money from Lynette, but she didn't have any money, so they got into an argument, and she left the car.
Lynette Ledford was hitchhiking home from a Halloween party when she was picked up by Lawrence Bittaker.
Then we were on our way back to the motel, and some girl yelled out, "Hey!" And Larry looked out of his driver's window because she was on that side of the road, slowed down real fast and burned a U-turn, and we went back. I asked if she wanted a ride, and she said yeah.
You got to think, guys, this was another time. This was in
Lynette told them where
1979,
she
so
lived. Then at some point, instead of going
it was
that
okay to
direction,
hitchhike.
Bittaker pulled off of the main street.
We continued the same direction she was going. She told him to turn left at one point at an intersection, which we did. The pavement ran out and it became a dirt road, and almost immediately as we got onto the dirt, Larry hit the brakes on the van.
They ended up in a dirt field. Bittaker grabbed her from the passenger seat and threw her in the back on top of Norris, knocking Norris over. And then Bittaker followed. Bittaker had a knife out, pounced on her, told Norris to go up and drive.
I was told to get into the driver's seat and drive. Try to get onto freeway. I got on the freeway. I turned the radio on, and he came up front a few minutes after I had done that and turned the radio down real low, and he got his tape recorder.
He raped her, tape recording a lot of it.
Yeah.
And she said, please don't hurt me
It
anymore.
was sick.
Please don't hit me. And then he traded places with Norris, and Norris raped her. Norris wanted to know why she wasn't screaming the way she was with Bittaker. So Norris took that sledgehammer that he had used on Leah, started hitting Lynette in the elbow, making her scream, constantly hitting her like as hard as he could.
Up, Drifty Rabbit. Thank you for coming in.
Bittaker said to Norris, well, look, I've really killed all the others and you haven't killed anybody, so why don't you kill her? Norris agreed, and he took a coat hanger, the way Bittaker had used it around Cindy's neck, and tightened it. And when we found her body, we could see that the coat hanger was tightened to about the size of a silver dollar.
Sickos. And I've got some photos that I want to share with you guys too after this
Bittaker
documentary.
said,
Blow your
hey,
mind.
Wouldn't it be cool to throw her
It's going
body
to remind
into
you of
the
a
yard?
They came to this spot where they then dumped her body to see how the local media would react.
Norris pulled Lynette's nude body out, threw it into the front ivy bed. Now, Norris, in talking to us that first time, told us that he and Bittaker killed Lynette together, that they both choked her and tightened the coat hanger around Lynette's neck. But later on, he admitted that no, really, he had killed her. The tape that we found in Bittaker's van, which is just the most awful thing that you could ever hear, the tape reaches down inside you and pulls out your insides, listening to
I think we're going to hear a clip from the tape in this documentary. Like I said, I've got like 6 more tabs I want to share.
so
It's going to be kind of
haunting.
a long live.
The jurors were just in absolute shock.
It was the most devastating
The
testimony
court
the jury
recorder.
has heard.
Here we go. Trigger
The
warning.
agonizing screams of teenager Lynette Ledford as she was being tortured in a moving van. A spectator rushed from the courtroom. It was more than she could stand.
I remember there was a courtroom artist got up and ran out of the courtroom.
She puked.
The tape recording lasted 11 minutes.
I've heard screams before, but I've never heard anything like that in my life.
My most prominent memory was the Paul Bynum being on the witness stand. Paul was a man who loved women. He put women on a pedestal. He had a mental breakdown because of the brutality of this case, and he was just ashamed to be a man.
Now, trigger warning is running across the bottom of the screen. Extremely graphic
Seems to
content.
affect you obviously quite deeply.
When I went out into the hallway, the cameras came up, and
Look how
just
young
in
he
my head,
was.
Paul and the poor girls, and I knew that they were all tortured, but
I don't register to vote.
so
and
I lost it.
I've got my own reasons.
I broke down.
But I wouldn't make a good juror at all. True crime has ruined me. And I've got a transcript that I'm going to read.
I just picture those girls.
Be a little less triggering than listening to the full audio.
When they were when they died. I'm sorry.
In his opening statement, the prosecutor told the jurors the tape would give them some idea of what hell is like. He was right.
This is the tape of the tortured victims and people screaming. And like I said, they were screaming and vomiting, running out. It says, despite some of the most devastating evidence ever presented in an American courtroom, Albert Garber still attempted to shift the blame to Roy Norris.
There were two highlights of the cross-examination.
Okay, Sean, you
and I
are
was
right.
worried
I
about the
apologize.
cross-examination because here was a guy with 138 IQ, and I thought, oh,
Thank
this
you,
is gonna
sir,
be
for
tough.
correcting me.
But it turned out he has 138 IQ, but he has no common sense. So I asked him the question. I said, well, now, Mr. Bittaker, you've been in court and you heard the tape of Lynette Ledford. What was happening to cause her to scream? He said, oh, that was just pillow talk. Did he say that was just pillow talk? And of course,
Yeah, he was a coward, Dolly.
There were cat calls from the audience, like, you got to be kidding. He was saying that, in effect, this was foreplay. And then the second thing, Norris said that Bittaker told him that he buried some tapes. So I figured that probably was the tape involving Jackie. I wanted to get those. And I say, okay, Mr. Bittaker, I want you to show us on the map where you buried the tape or tapes and the photographs. And Bittaker then said, well, I'm going to take the fifth. The judge says, well, if you take the fifth, I'm going to strike all of your testimony. So you better decide if you're going to answer the question. Of course, I didn't want his testimony stricken, especially not with the cross-examination. He looked at the map again and he said, I don't remember. He was a dead duck after that.
Bittaker trial was first trial in California that allowed TV cameras in the courtroom.
If I had any doubt about what the jurors were going to do after the cross-examination, I had no doubt that they were going to convict him.
This is Bittaker is convicted of the murder and torture slayings of the teenagers. February 17th, 1981, the jury convicted Bittaker of murder and rape. It says Bittaker is sentenced to die. February 24th, 1981, the jury voted to sentence Bittaker to death. A unanimous vote. I'm sure after hearing that tape, that had to be just... I couldn't imagine sitting in the courtroom and listening to these girls scream. 1 month later, Bittaker was transported to San Quentin State Penitentiary. If you guys don't know much about San Quentin, it's definitely worth checking out.
Like all new arrivals to death row, Lawrence Bittaker would spend several weeks in one of the three structures that houses condemned prisoners, the Adjustment Center. Here he was classified for permanent assignment and not deemed a serious security threat or a senior member of a criminal gang. Permanent assignment to the Adjustment Center involves residents in 5 by 9 foot cells that are enclosed with wire mesh, no
cages where they belong,
very limited contact with other human beings. Allow for only 3 showers and 2 hour-long exercise periods a week in 12 by 8 foot wire enclosed cages. Although it is possible to eventually be sent to the North Segregation Unit, an area housing approximately 100 of the least troublesome condemned, like most inmates, Bittaker was sent to the 500-cell East Block, a modest improvement over the Adjustment Center. Every morning at approximately 6 a.m., Lawrence Bittaker will be awakened by the sounds of guards serving breakfast from a metal cart on each of the East Block's 5 tiers. Prisoners eat breakfast and dinner in their cells. Lunch is a paper sack containing a sandwich and some type of fruit served at about 11 o'clock. At approximately 7 a.m., those prisoners who wish to may ask to be allowed out into one of 6 exercise yards. They must first be strip searched and shackled, a condition which causes many prisoners to remain in their cells. Because of hostility from other inmates, Bittaker never leaves his cell except for a shower in a converted area of his tier. If and when he does leave, he is classified as a walk-alone, a prisoner who is escorted by 2 armed guards because of notoriety among the prison population. Usually, he will spend his time with books from the prison library, legal documents, or mostly watching a 13-inch Zenith color television purchased for him from a prison-approved vendor. Death row prisoners are not allowed to work and do not engage in any form of rehabilitation. They may spend up to $190 a month in the prison canteen, but this money can only be provided by outsiders, typically friends or family. Bittaker's parents died in the 80s, and he has no family, so any visits are an extremely rare occurrence. There is no air conditioning, internet, or conjugal visits, and although Bittaker was legally married early in his confinement, his spouse filed for a divorce 4 years later. Regulations and a physical description cannot really adequately describe Lawrence Bittaker's current residence. An inmate once commented, "Imagine a place that reeks of stale sweat, echoes with constant yelling, and swarms with anger. This is a madhouse. This is insane. There's no warmth and there's no emotion, only hatred." By the end of 1981, when Lawrence Bittaker arrived on death row, there were 80 condemned inmates in California. By 1989, the year his appeal was finally adjudicated. This number had increased to 247. By 1992, the year that California carried out its first execution in 25 years, this number had swelled to 345. This accumulation was the result of an ongoing struggle between the general public and various elements within the judicial process. Twice, in 1972 and 1976, the California Supreme Court invalidated the state's death penalty, permanently overturning death sentences for 177 individuals, including Charles Manson and Sirhan Sirhan. Both times, the public overwhelmingly approved referendums restoring capital punishment in a legally acceptable form. While the voting public had made its preference clear, the California Supreme Court continued to generate controversy over appeals involving capital punishment. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Rose Bird, became a lightning rod for controversy and for public outrage concerning the death penalty. Of the 61 death penalty cases reviewed during her tenure, 58 were overturned, with Chief Justice Bird voting to overturn all 61. Because of the
Same
circumstances
crime
of her
curious. I've been
appointment
looking
by
into
Governor
this for
Jerry
days.
Brown, Rose Bird had
Heartbreaking.
to stand for reapproval by the voters in 1986, an election that effectively became a referendum on the death penalty. The voters not only voted to remove Justice Bird by a landslide, they also voted to remove 2 other justices who had routinely voted with her to overturn death sentences.
I have a clip and a transcript.
Unfortunately for Lawrence Bittaker, his automatic appeal to the Supreme Court
You
was
want to
not
serve
heard
on a
until
jury? I
after
don't think I
Rose
could be
Bird had been
impartial.
removed. On June 22, 1989,
7
the court
minutes behind.
unanimously affirmed Bittaker's
You're good,
conviction
Sean. Thank
and
you
death
for being
penalty,
here.
and an execution date was
Thank
set
you
for
all for
December
being here. I
29th,
appreciate everybody. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be here.
When Bittaker appealed his conviction to the U.S. Supreme Court, this execution date was automatically stayed. After the Supreme Court refused to hear his case, another execution date was set for July 23, 1991, but this would be stayed when Bittaker petitioned the U.S. Federal District Court for the opportunity to find another attorney. In all, Bittaker would have 3 execution dates set for him, but he would successfully avoid all 3. Lawrence
I'm going to
Bittaker
grab a
was now
coffee,
firmly
guys, so I'll miss
ensconced in the
chat for just a
Twilight
couple
Zone
minutes
process
here.
between the state and federal courts relative to the death penalty. Once a convicted criminal had had his conviction affirmed at the state level, he could then file what is known as a petition for a writ of habeas corpus.
It's the ability of a person who's been convicted to get relief on the grounds that they're being held in violation of the Constitution and laws of the United States. I've been teaching for 32 years. I've written many things about habeas corpus. I also continue to handle appellate cases and have frequently argued appeals in the context of people whose habeas corpus petitions were denied. The California Supreme Court has discretionary jurisdiction except in death penalty cases. Death cases go right from the California Superior Court to the California Supreme Court. After the California Supreme Court decides, a matter can go to the U.S. Supreme Court. But you've also got the federal court system, and somebody who's been convicted in state court and exhausted their state appeals can go to federal district court and file a writ of habeas corpus. If they lose in the federal district court, and they get a certificate of appealability, they can go to the United States Court of Appeals, and then they can ask Supreme Court review.
It's very hard to listen to.
Lawrence
It's
Bittaker would
very
not restrict
disturbing.
himself to merely pursuing his criminal appeal. Beginning in 1983, representing himself, he would begin filing numerous civil lawsuits, typically against prison authorities for what were ostensibly constitutional infringements.
Okay, guys, I don't know if I can read this quick enough. It says, for over a decade, Bittaker was on his one San Quentin jailers, was amongst the other things, seizure of 250 pen, photographer of women,
This continued
exposing the
litigation
additional
would draw the
tobacco and
attention of at least
prohibiting
one
the
national
substance, failure
publication
to
and
deliver.
caused the trial court in 1993
Sorry.
to impose upon Lawrence Bittaker the official status of vexatious litigant.
I'm going to read the transcript from the tapes. It's going to be a lot easier for people to listen
Bittaker
to
appealed that ruling to the
than me
California
playing
State
the full
Appeals
tape
Court,
because it's
claiming that his
really
status as a
disturbing.
vexatious litigant had nothing to do with his
Really
criminal appeal.
disturbing.
Since this was an important legal issue, nothing could proceed regarding Bittaker's execution until this appeal was considered. It would not be until 1997 that in fact Bittaker would be allowed to continue his criminal appeals, the appellate court ruling that the status of vexatious litigant only applies to civil and not criminal proceedings. Bittaker would not fully exhaust his state habeas corpus remedies for his criminal appeal until November 29, 2000. By the end of 2000, 589 condemned prisoners would reside on California's death row. Bittaker's federal habeas corpus appeal, now essentially riding on issues involving ineffective counsel in his original trial, could then continue. But this presented another complicated legal circumstance when the state of California unsuccessfully attempted to void Bittaker's attorney-client privilege in any retrial. It would not be until late 2003 that Albert Garber, Steve Kay, and several other individuals would even be deposed on the ineffective counsel issues.
Al Garber was a very talented criminal defense attorney, very well respected in the legal community. I thought he was excellent in the trial. I mean, he really held my feet to the fire. The problem that we have now is the defense in federal court. They're trying to say that Mr. Garber was incompetent. Well, he clearly wasn't incompetent. He was more than competent. But when they took his deposition, Mr. Garber was 88 years old at the time. He didn't even remember who Lawrence Bittaker was.
For 2 years, even the contents of these depositions would be the subject of legal bickering. But throughout this process, the federal district court judge, William M. Byrne, seemed determined to bring this lengthy case to a logical conclusion. Although the Bittaker process crept along slowly, there was activity. This would all change suddenly. On January 12, 2006, Judge William Matthew Byrne died at the age of 75. This meant that Lawrence Bittaker's appeals in the federal court system would have to be assigned to a new judge, and lawyers for the defense and the state of California would have to resubmit legal briefs summarizing the case. Once again, the process ground to a halt. Only a month later, another death row inmate's case would have an even greater impact on capital punishment in the state of California. On February 21, 2006, a convicted rapist and killer named Michael Morales was scheduled to be executed by the state of California. Only hours away from the lethal injection process, the state announced that it could not comply with the medical guidelines imposed upon it by a federal district judge, and the execution was canceled. Following several hearings in 2006, this judge, Jeremy Fogel, citing concerns over the lethal injection process, issued a moratorium on all executions in the state of California. He demanded, among other things, that the state commission and pay for a scientific study to determine if lethal injection causes any pain to the individual being executed.
Okay, in my opinion,
although this moratorium
they
was
need to
officially
feel
only
pain.
decreed for several months, it would be periodically extended and clearly would halt any executions in California for many years. Despite several death row inhabitants having already exhausted their appeals, they cannot be executed as long as Judge Fogel's moratorium remains in place.
So families get no justice
Since the
because
reintroduction
some
of capital
judge was
punishment
afraid
in
that they might feel pain
1978,
after what
only
they put these
13
girls through.
individuals have been executed in California.
I would strongly support an initiative to repeal the death penalty in California. I think that one of the key problems is administered in such an arbitrary and equitable way. Where did the crime happen? What was the race of the defendant? What was the race of the victims? And I don't think who lives and who dies should be based on this. Also, we know of so many errors in the criminal justice system. People being wrongly convicted and sentenced to death, even though they were actually innocent. We shouldn't impose the ultimate punishment when it's irreversible, and we know the system is so often flawed.
You have to remember that the voters of
We know
California
the
in
system's broken.
1978 voted in the death penalty law by a wide margin, and that's the death penalty law that's still in effect today. So for me, it's not a question of expense, it's a question of justice. I don't think that you can take it away from the voters. My position on the death penalty is a little different from a lot of prosecutors. I believe that the death penalty should be used only in a small number of cases that are so horrible that for us to exist as a society, we have to say that we absolutely will not condone this activity. People like Bittaker and Manson, they don't deserve to spend their last years in a retirement community at the taxpayers' expense.
No, they
As of
deserve to be
February
fried like we do them in Kentucky.
2012,
We
there are
frown.
722 condemned inmates on death row at San Quentin. Because the death penalty was reinstated in California by a popular referendum, it can only be repealed by another referendum. In 2012, a petition drive began to place such a referendum on the November 2012 ballot to repeal the death penalty. The 2012 referendum would convert all death sentences, including Lawrence Bittaker's, retroactively to life without parole. In 2009, Roy Norris received his first mandatory parole hearing. Because he opted not to attend, he is not eligible for another parole hearing until the year 2019. Currently, he is incarcerated at the state prison facility at Corcoran, California. In 2006, a new judge, Federal District Court Judge Terry Hatter, was appointed to handle the federal habeas corpus appeal of Lawrence Bittaker. The state of California and Bittaker's publicly funded defense attorneys had to take an entire year to resubmit legal briefs. As of February 2012, almost 6 years later, Justice Hatter has not held a single meaningful proceeding in the Bittaker case. Even if a referendum changing Bittaker's death sentence to life without parole fails, most court observers believe that Lawrence Bittaker will die of natural causes long before he is even close to execution.
And he did. No justice. He got to live his life out in prison. Monster. On November 6, 2012, by a margin of 5%, California voters rejected to... Sorry, I missed that word. Hopefully you guys were able to read it. The executions of at least 14 condemned inmates in California who have exhausted all federal and state appeals are on hold until litigation concerning Judge Fogel's memorandum is resolved. The process will mostly conclude for several years. And as far as I know, it hasn't been resolved. If you guys know anything different, please let me know. See, California has turned into a tent city. I can't imagine it. Exactly, because if you're homeless or if you want to run away from home, California
wasn't
to go. If
sleeping
they don't go
much
to California,
in
they
the
come to
trial,
Florida.
and when I did sleep, I would have this recurring nightmare. I would hear the girls screaming, and I would be running to save them, and I would always get there too late. I'd wake up and I'd be in a cold sweat, and I had that same recurring nightmare for 2 years after the trial.
And that's another reason I don't want to
it's
play the full
still
tape, because it's
hard
really
to this
gruesome.
day, to relive it. 5 years after the case was over, Paul Bynum committed suicide, and he left a note saying that he felt that someday Norris and Bittaker would get out, that Bittaker would come after him. He
And
thought
we
that
see
if
that
he
so
killed
often,
himself,
self-harm
that
in
they
these
would leave
cases.
his wife and daughter alone.
Dolly Bear says, I wonder how many degrees he has, how much capable in eating 3 meals a day, sleeping on a cot, and regular exercise, working out, free healthcare. Facts. Facts. While these girls got no justice. No justice. Beautiful girls. This is Cindy Schaefer and Andrea Hall. They were never found. These 2 girls are still missing. Shirley Lynette Ledford is buried in Los Angeles. I'm going to mute it for the music, guys, because I don't have to edit out the video. Leah Lamp is buried in Redondo Beach, just a few miles from where she lived. Beautiful girls. Beautiful girls. And these are her words of her mother that you're seeing on the screen. She passed away in 2006. So she gained her wings without her daughter getting justice because these broken system. I'm trying to choose my words, guys. 6 weeks later, she died of pneumonia at age 41. Ingrid Gillum, 1943 to 1984. So sad. So sad. Says her daughter Jackie's ashes reside in a 2-inch by 2-inch mausoleum column in the same cemetery. The trigger warnings running across the bottom of the screen. I don't throw out constant trigger warnings, much like Allie, because this is a graphic true crime channel, and I generally only do graphic content. So I have the banner running. Okay, so the next thing that I want to share with you guys is a article that I found. Let me scroll back up because so this is Auction True Crime for Crime Con. So if you guys haven't already hit the bell, make sure you hit that bell so you can see the live if we go live or the pics that I post from Crime Con 2023. Okay. There were 2 of California's most depraved serial killers ever. How did the toolbox killers get caught? After bonding in prison, Lawrence Whitaker and Roy Norris executed a plan to abduct girls, bring them to San Gabriel Mountains, rape, and torture them. Visualize South California in 1970s, and you likely conjure up the images of palm trees and sun-dappled beaches, but the decade was a dark time in that state. Some of the most notorious killers stalked California during this time, including the Zodiac Killer, the Golden State Killer, and the Freeway Killer. The Toolbox Killers, aka Lawrence Whitaker and Roy Norris, may be slightly less known, but the judge presiding over Whitaker's trial put, according to the Los Angeles Times, the killing sprees in the most horrendous murder cases ever tried in this state. Not only Whitaker and Norris kidnapped, murdered 5 girls in the span of 5 months, they viciously tortured, and repeatedly raped their captives, capturing these girls' torment photos on tape. So they got them on photos, and it's Polaroids. They got their nicknames from kits that they kept their van in filled with tools for torture. And that's the terrain, guys. Audio of one of the victims' ordeals was recovered and played during Whitaker's trial. People cried, vomited, left the courtroom. According to Laura Brand, and I have emailed her, and hopefully we can get her to come up on panel. It would be really awesome to talk to her because she actually spent time and interviewed in prisons and got to know one of these sick, sadistic guys. It says, who will be speaking at a panel on these two sadistic murders at CrimeCon in 2021 entitled What Hell is Like? The Untold Story of the Toolbox Killers. Her interviews with Bittaker over the years will focus on the upcoming special, The Toolbox Killers. And that is a documentary, The Toolbox Killers. She's got a small clip on her channel, and I don't think she was really happy with the way that it was done, just reading into the clip. Lawrence Bittaker was born in 1940 and Roy Norris was born in 1948. Grew up under different circumstances. Bittaker's dad left the family when he was young, and his mom often neglected her two children with a drinking problem. Eventually, Bittaker and his brother were separated and adopted by different relatives, whom Bittaker claimed were unloving. Norris, on the other hand, reported to have relatively happy, normal childhood. And if you guys are chatting, I apologize. I can't see chat because I don't have my second screen hooked up. So I'll get to chat in just a minute. Regardless, the two ended up in the same places. San Lucas Obispo Men's Colony Prison. Sorry if I said that wrong. Bittaker was in prison for stabbing a man, and Norris committed series of sexual assaults. It was while they were incarcerated the two men bonded over fantasies of torture, and Bittaker and Norris, released in parole in 1978 and 79, respectively, moved to Los Angeles County, reconnected, and turned up deprived fantasies into horrifying reality. The two men bought a GM, which is General Motors, cargo van they dubbed the Murder Mac. The New York Daily News reported in 2015 they tailored the van for their needs, sunproofing, adding police radar locks that could be disabled from the inside, blackout windows, and a bed, and a torture toolbox. So a lot of times we hear about murder kits. Theirs was a toolbox. They did test runs, picking up women hitchhikers until they felt confident in their plans. The Toolbox Killer's victims. This is one of the girls. Such beautiful girls. In total, Bittaker and Norris kidnapped, raped, and tortured, murdered 5 women. Lucinda Cindy Schaefer, 16, and Andrea Hall, 18. Jacqueline Williams, 15. Leah Lamp, 13. Shirley Lynette Ledford, 16. Schaefer was the first victim, kidnapped in June of 1979. And you know, when I got to reading into this case, and again, big shout out to my soon-to-be daughter-in-law for bringing this case to my attention. I was born June of 1979. I tend to have cases brought to me that have a weird bond with me, and anybody that does true crime that are creators, big shout out to you guys, because you find a bond in these cases, and there's always something, that one thing that grabs a hold of you that you can't help, but you sleep at night and you wake up in the morning and you think about these cases. Okay, so got on a rant there. So Schaefer was the first victim, kidnapped in June 1979 while walking home. After taking her to the van in San Gabriel Mountains, they eventually strangled her with a wire hanger and dumped her body off a cliff. Her body was never recovered. Hall was taken in July 1979 after deciding to hitchhike home from the beach. Norris hid under the bed in the back of Bittaker, picked her up so she wouldn't be suspicious. He then attacked her. Bittaker forced her to march up a hill before taking photos and performing the act. The Los Angeles Times reported Bittaker would eventually jam an ice pick into her ear before strangling her. And that's according to the documents. And I have the documents as well. Like Schaefer, her body was never found. Look at this beautiful redhead. And I'm not on camera tonight, guys, because I look rough. I've been running around like a crazy person all day trying to get ready for tomorrow. I'm also a redhead. Gillum and Lamp were taken next in September of 1979, where they were hitchhiking into Redondo Beach. According to court documents, the girls tried to escape after the men attacked them in the van, but were eventually subdued and held for 58 hours. The men took new photos of Gillum and recorded the rape. Gillum, like Hall, was killed after being struck in the ear with an ice pick and strangled, while Lamp beaten with a sledgehammer. According to court documents, partial remains of the girls were eventually discovered. Beautiful girls. And I don't want the victims to get lost in this story, so that's why I feel like it was important to share this article, because it has their beautiful faces. The final victim was Shirley Lynette Ledford, who was taken on Halloween of 1979. She had been hitchhiking home from her job. The men recorded themselves torturing her before they eventually strangled her with a coat hanger and tossed the body into an ivy bed in a suburban town. A tip off potential witnesses and incriminating photos of how the toolbox killers were captured. What finally ended their 5-month reign of torture, of all things, Norris's inability to keep his mouth shut. Norris reconnected with an old friend and told him what he and Bittaker had been doing, as well as their plans for future girls. According to Bram, the friend ended up reporting them to the Hermosa. Sorry, I'm in Florida, so I wanted to say Hermosa, but it's not. It's Hermosa Beach Police. There's a picture of the van. The way this article is made, guys, I can't make the picture any bigger, so I apologize. Norris and Bittaker had also attacked other women during the crime spree who had survived the assaults, including Jan Mullen, who managed to escape when the men tried to abduct her, according to court documents. The van and the two men had been reported to police by these women. They already gave a general description of Norris and Bittaker. Police placed Norris under surveillance for a few days before arresting him. Bittaker called during the arrest, which was tipped off to authorities, would be coming after him, was able to destroy and bury evidence, including the tape of Gillam's grape and several pictures. Still on the tape of Ledford and several other incriminating photos were found. And this is the tape, guys. And there's one of the tools that they used. And, if it still had somebody's blood on it. The trial after his arrest, Norris confessed to police, although he was insisted that Bittaker was a real mastermind behind this murder spree. In exchange for the plea deal, he agreed to testify against Bittaker, who pled guilty to 5 counts of murder, 2 counts of forcible rape, and robbery. He was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. That was reported by CBS in 2021. And if you guys look over here in the corner, they cut it off, but that's the yellow box that we saw earlier in the documentary. Norris's testimony helped seal Bittaker's, I keep wanting to say Baker, I apologize, Bittaker's fate, as the gruesome photos and shocking 17-minute tape of Ledford's screens, which people in the courtroom tears. In addition, with jailhouse inmates, and testified Bittaker signed autographs as pliers, Bittaker, a reference to one of his favorite torture tools, according to the Los Angeles Times. And there's the pliers that they used. Bittaker was found guilty on 26 counts of murder, kidnapping, criminal conspiracy, rape, oral copulation, sodomy, and being an ex-felon in possession of a firearm. He was sentenced to death in his crimes in 1981. CBS reported he died of natural causes in 2019. Norris died of natural causes while still incarcerated at the age of 72 in 2020. So this is the private investigator. And hopefully we won't. Yeah, we're going to have an ad. So I'll let the ad run and I'll check chat real quick while the ad's running. Let's see. I'm probably way behind here. Okay. Let's see. California has turned into a city. I already read that one. Read that one. I just want to make sure I don't miss anybody. I want everybody in my chat to know I appreciate everybody for being here. I don't want to leave anybody out. Thank you, Dolly Bear, for being here. You're good, Sean. Thank you for being here. Yes, I do have audio of the tapes. Maya. I agree. Yeah. This is her on the screen. Do you really, Sean? Maya. Rabbit holes are where we live.
Persistent with him. He never even sent me a visiting
That
form,
would
and I still got in
because
there
I
with him and
muted
kept going
it.
and going back. I
So
was like a
let's try
dog
that
with a bone.
again.
And, you know, I just both Bittaker and Norris, I was getting a
Sorry,
lot
guys. I
farther
just don't
with
want to listen to the
Bittaker.
ad.
When I
Anti-ad.
interviewed Norris, you know, he would change up his story and lie and say that, you know, he was on drugs and he was passed out during the murder, or just, you know, change up his story.
That was Laura Brandt. She spoke with serial killers Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris while they were in prison. The pair kidnapped, raped, and murdered 5 teenagers in 1979. Infamously, they recorded the brutal assaults and murders in photographs and audio tapes. Bittaker was able to destroy or hide some of the evidence before his capture, but a tape of Shirley Lynette Ledford's murder was recovered.
It was taken on Halloween night, and it is the rape and horrific torture and killing of Lynette. Ironically, it was not found at Norris's. It was the one piece they were able to recover off of Bittaker's. And the reason for that is Bittaker had actually had it in the cassette tape and he had forgot about it.
The pair became known as the Toolbox Killers because they used tools like ice picks and pliers to torture victims. The case and Brand's unique insights will be part of an upcoming special on Oxygen with interviews and a deep dive into the evidence.
You're going to get to hear Bittaker himself. That's a 40 years you've never heard him speak, so you're going to get to hear that. But even above and beyond that, you get to hear Kitty, you know, Jackie Gilliam's best friend, and her family and what they've gone through all these years. You're going to get to hear Andrea's sister and her family, and you know what it's like having a sister and a family member who's been killed by these guys, and Andrea's still missing, and they're still desperately trying to get her home. You're going to hear my tapes with him, you know, desperately trying to figure out who these victims are, desperately trying to get Cindy and Andrea home for their families, and how close I am to Julie and Kitty and everybody on this case. You're going to get to hear from Kristen, and Kristen was escaped not once but twice by the Toolbox Killers in one day.
Investigators were eventually tipped off by a friend of Norris's who reported what Norris told him about the rapes and murders, as well as Norris and Bittaker's plans
Oh my
to
God, I
strike
couldn't
again.
imagine, Sean. I'm so
Brand.
sorry.
Actually
honey.
showed him the
Thank
next
you for being
victims
here.
that they were looking into, but he told him about the murders and how they were taking these girls up the mountains and killing them.
How did you first get connected to the case?
I had reached out to Bittaker and Norris, I think it was in 2014. It was in 2018 when Bittaker finally revealed where the buried evidence was, where the 2 locations of where Cindy and Andrea's remains were. And I walked out of prison that day, and then I called Stephen Kay, the district attorney. He also did the Charles Manson family case. So, you know, I started with him, and then I just went deeper and deeper. I got the whole entire, you know, discovery, the police discovery. So I got a whole list of names from that. I got the trial transcripts, and I went deeper and deeper and deeper. down the rabbit hole into the Bittaker Norris case.
What do you think made
just dropped one
Bittaker
of the
open up
files.
to you so much? Is it
The
because
link
time
in
had
chat if you
passed?
guys
Was it
want
a
to read
different
over it.
circumstance?
I think, in a sense, I reminded him of his mother. You know, at the time I was 7.5 months pregnant when I was in there. I think I also triggered something about his ex-girlfriend, which I dive into a lot into my book. She was another witness I tracked down. You know, and I was also really persistent with him. He never even sent me a visiting form, and I still got in there with him and kept going and going back. I was like a dog with a bone. And, you know, I just was not letting go, and I just kept showing up and writing to him. And, you know, I just did not give up on him. And, you know, little by little, I chipped away and really got him to start talking, got him to open up.
It could be a pretty scary thing to have to talk to someone, especially when the crimes that they had were in some ways recorded, pretty well known. What was that experience like for you?
I know when you hear about the crimes, and especially when you're sitting in a dog style type kennel cage and they're telling it to you straight to your face, it can be overwhelming, especially, you know, but, you know, I take myself out of that moment, and I think, you know, I'm here to do research. I'm here to find the answers. And I always think about the victims. I'm always thinking about Sydney and Andrea. You know, I got to find these girls. I got to find these answers. So, you know, it's not about me or my emotions. I have a job to do. And I got a lot of families I got to help out.
Both men died of natural causes. Bittaker in 2019 while on death row, and Norris shortly after in 2020. Brand is giving a preview of her work on the case at the True Crime Convention, CrimeCon.
I'm going to end that one, and I'm going to run this other one. So this is, I believe this one's the short clip of the audio. They're going to play the audio. Here we go. This one's the transcript, and I'm going to replace some of these words just for YouTube purposes. The screams that you were just listening to is Shirley Ledford was only 18 years old when she was brutally assaulted, tortured, and murdered by Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris, known as the Toolbox Killers, on Halloween night of October 31st, 1979. Detective Paul Byram, 39, retired officer of Hermosa Beach Police Department and chief investigator of the murders committed by Lawrence and Bittaker Warren, committed he self-unalived with a .38 caliber pistol in December of 1987. In his unalive note, self-harm note, Byram specifically referred to the murders and committed by Bittaker and Norris as haunting him and the fear that they would be released from prison. There's a Netflix series called Mindhunter. There's a reference to the audio tape. Warning in the video shown above, the screams, and we used a different channel. And then again, this says proceed at your own risk. If you are easily triggered or if this kind of stuff bothers you, I cannot see chat. I'm just going to ask that you take self-care and leave now or mute for the next couple of minutes. I'm going to replace some of these words, but guys, it's on the screen so you can see what the words are. Bittaker, slapping Shirley. Say something, girl. Huh? Ledford. What do you want me to say? Bittaker. Huh? Say something, girl. Don't you hit me. Huh? Bittaker. Say something, girl. Ledford. Ouch. Shirley begins to scream. Bittaker. Say something. Come on. You can scream louder than that, can't you? Huh? What's the matter? Don't you like to scream? Slapping sounds can be heard. Ledford screams. Oh, no. Bittaker. What's the matter? Huh? You want to try again? Ledford screams, "Oh no, don't touch me." Bittaker, "Huh? You want to try again?" Ledford, "Oh no, don't touch me. No, don't touch me. No, 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 no." "Want to try again?" Ledford, "No, no, 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 no." At this point, Shirley begins to cry profusely. She begs Bittaker to stop hitting her, saying again, "No, don't touch me." Giving what Bittaker says next, likely Shirley curls into a ball and turns away from him as she weeps. Bittaker, "Roll over, girl." Ledford, "Don't touch me." Bittaker, "Roll over." Ledford, pleading in a toned voice, "Don't touch me." Bittaker, slapping Shirley, "Start getting to work, girl." Ledford, "Don't touch me." Bittaker, "Start getting to work, girl." Ledford, crying, "Don't touch me. Don't touch me." Bittaker, "Get to work, girl." Ledford, "Don't touch me." Bittaker, "Roll over. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you." Bittaker, "Roll over." Ledford, crying sounds can be heard. Bittaker, "Come on, come on, come on." Bittaker, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Ledford, "Huh?" Bittaker, "What are you doing?" Ledford, "I'm not doing anything. I'm trying to do what you wanted me to do." Bittaker, "What did I want you to do?" Ledford, "Suck on it." Bittaker, "Suck on what?" Ledford, "This." Bittaker, "What's this?" Ledford, "Your pickle?" "Yeah, say it." Ledford, "Your pickle?" Bittaker, "You're sucking on my pickle. That's what you wanted me to do." That's what Ledford said. Bittaker, "Is that what you're doing?" Ledford, "Yes, I was." Bittaker, "Tell me." Ledford, "Yes." Bittaker, "Tell me what you're doing." Ledford, "I'm sucking on your pickle." Bittaker, do you want to do it?" Ledford, "You want me to?" Bittaker, "You want to, girl. You want to suck my pickle, baby. Huh? Huh? Hey? Start answering me." Beating sounds can be heard. Ledford, "Yes." Bittaker, "Tell me." Ledford, "Yes." Bittaker, "Beg me." Ledford, "Yes." "What? Hey, what you want, girl?" Ledford, "I want to suck on your pickle." Bittaker, "You don't sound like you really mean it." Slapping sounds. Ledford, "I do." Bittaker, laughing, "Suck on it then. Come on, start sucking on it. No matter what you do, squeeze as hard as you can. And if it hurts any time you want to scream, go ahead and scream." Ledford, "Oh no," she screams. Bittaker, "Scream, baby. Go ahead and scream, baby." At this point, Shirley had fillet him. Repeating sounds of administered beating interspersed with loud screams can be heard as Bittaker savagely beat Shirley with about the breast. Bittaker extracted his pliers from the toolbox. Shirley then emits several high-pitched, prolonged screams and cries in agony. Bittaker alternately squeezes her and twists her labia, nipples, and breasts with pliers. Bittaker then returns the pliers to the toolbox. Banging sounds can also be heard throughout, and which were believed to have been made, Shirley having come in contact with the walls and the inner contents of the van as she was writhed and flailed. Ledford, "My God, please stop," she screams. Bittaker, "Is the recorder going?" Norris, "Yeah." Bittaker, "Scream, baby, scream, baby." Ledford, "I can't." Bittaker, "Scream some more, baby. Come on, baby, come on. Nobody's going to hurt you. Turn over and talk nice to me. Love me? You want nothing more than the world than to make me, huh?" Ledford, still crying, says something in other words, unaudible, which ends in her saying, "That's right." Bittaker, "Say it again. Say what you want. What do you want?" Ledford, "Your pickle." Bittaker, "Where do you want it, huh?" "I don't want to hold and squeeze it." "Why?" Ledford, "It feels good 'cause you like it." Bittaker, "You want to make me, huh, baby?" Ledford, "Oh yeah. You want to make me, huh? Want me to, huh? Tell me, baby." Beating and slapping sounds. Ledford, "Yes." Bittaker, "Tell me." Ledford, "Yeah." Bittaker, "Huh?" Ledford, "Oh yeah. Hey girl, you want me to put a pair of pliers up your hoo-ha?" Ledford, "What?" Bittaker, "You want to make me, You want to make me, huh?" Bittaker, "Huh? Want to make me, girl, huh?" Ledford, "Oh yes," she screams. Bittaker, "Yes, what?" Ledford, "I want you to, Come on." Shirley Ledford then screams in agony. Bittaker inserts the pliers into her vagina and twists them, tearing her. Bittaker, stop screaming at me. Come on, talk to me. Ledford, y'all can read what it says on the screen. Bittaker, where do you want me? Ledford, I want you to and that you guys can read that. That's just disgusting. And keep in mind, this went on, I believe it was 17 minutes. Norris, make noise there, girl. Go ahead and scream. I'll make you scream. Pleading tone. I'll scream if you stop hitting me. Enthusiastic tone. Oh yeah? Ledford screaming. Keep it up, girl. Screaming. Norris. More. Ledford screaming. Norris. Till I say stop. Ledford screaming. Unaudible sounds can be heard interspersed with sounds of Shirley Ledford crying and moaning. Sounds of Norris extracting the sledgehammer from the toolbox can be heard. Shirley seeing him do this, as again begins crying and shouting, "Oh no, no, no." She screams in fear again, "Oh no, no," before again. Norris strikes Shirley on the elbow. Ledford, you broke it. I barely hit it, Norris said. Ledford, pleading and sobbing, don't hit me again. Norris, oh yeah? Norris can be heard lifting the sledgehammer from the floor in the van. Possibly a wooden frame on the bed had two constructed in the rear of the van. Ledford, no, no, no. Bludgeoning sounds can be heard, intercepted with repeating of high-pitched screams. Ledford screaming no repetitively. Shirley is struck 25 times in succession with the left elbow by Norris, repeating the fractures on the left elbow. Each time the hammer strikes her, piercing her scream can be heard at the point where she has tried something, but the voice can become unaudible, massive pain. Norris, how's that? Bittaker, he was driving. What's going on? Norris, I was just beating on her elbows with this hammer. Bittaker, Ledford screams, and Norris repeatedly strikes her in the elbow with the hammer. Norris, what are you sniveling about? Ledford screams. No, oh, ow, repeated screams. Ledford screams. The tape recorder then switched off before Norris strangles Shirley. The last word Shirley Lynette spoke at the end of the short laugh was, "Do it, just kill me." Heartbreaking. Absolutely disgusting, heartbreaking case. And like I said at the beginning of this video, guys, the beginning of this live, these girls, their justice was stolen from them. These two sick, disturbed, horrid men were allowed to live out their lives that they didn't deserve to live out in prison. Broken system. Mothers, daughters, families, aunt, uncles got no justice. This is an actual photo. This is Roy Norris. This is another actual photo. There's the van, and you guys can see how they destroyed the back of the van. That's not the van. I don't even know why I saved that. I apologize. And there's the girls, and I want to make sure the girls stay on screen there. So I'm going to leave that up. It's extremely disturbing case. Absolute monsters. Let me see here. I'm sure I'm off in chat, so let me back up here. Let's see, what do we got going on? Let's see. Thank you guys for all being here. I appreciate everybody for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And, you know, it's just flooring. It's absolutely flooring. Only 13 minutes behind. Bless your heart, Sean. Thank you for being in here. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. They need to feel lots of pain. I agree. Sean said, "FARQ, you don't want to miss anything." Thank you so much. I appreciate it, honey. I really, really do. I appreciate everybody being here. Thanks for everybody coming in chat. And again, big shout out to Maya for bringing this case to my attention. Yeah, Sean's awesome. We love Sean. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, only 3 years ago. See, Sean says, "FARQ, I've been around this story for a long time. I've been listening to a lot of stuff. I just watched a couple months ago a documentary, the interviewer, the lady who had gone there many times. And that was Miss Brand that we were just watching from the oxygen clip. I feel like I'm invested in this, and I remember it when I was a little kid. I'm so sorry, Sean, and I'm so sorry. Like, that had to be horrific." And there's Maya. Thank you so much for coming in, honey. And you're welcome, Dolly, and thank you so much for all you do, honey. Yes, thank you for being here. That's FARQ. Let me know we had sound now. Sean says these girls were his sister's age, about 2 years older than him. It is very scary. Very scary. Dolly says when she saw Adam Walsh's story, I told my mom I never want to play softball. I played softball for years and years. Becky says still working before a holiday I see. Absolutely all the time, girl. True crime don't stop. Good on you. Thor saying hi to Mickey. There's some American comedian Mickey. Her Asgardian prince. Throwing some Aussie love out there. Oi, oi, oi. See, Maya says she went to grab a drink. She's back now. Thank you, Maya, for being here. And again, big shout out to Maya for bringing this story to my attention. My beautiful soon-to-be daughter-in-law. Much love. Dandy, fashionably late. Welcome in, my love. You watched the series? Probably, I worked way too damn much. 3D life gets in the way. Everybody saying good evening. Hola. Hello, perps. Maggie said, "We're not perps." Or are we? Oh, okay. Autocorrect. She meant peeps. You're good. Yeah, swine, straight pigs. Let's see. So pray that the shock kicked and they felt nothing. Yeah, and you know what's so sick is one of these girls, that she asked for nothing more than to be able to pray. And the sick pieces of shit couldn't even let her pray. The expert, if you guys aren't subbed up to the expert, make sure you guys sub up to him. I'll drop his link here. Amazing channel with some amazing guests always, and he does Friday Night Lives, which are very decompressing from what we do here in the true crime world. So thank you, the expert. You're awesome. The White Rabbit. I don't have her link in my Nightbot, but I'll put it in there. If you guys go to the experts, it should be in his description. His wife has an amazing channel with the doggos. Everybody's saying hello. Yeah. Tears. Sorry, but I bite it off given the opportunity. Dude, I would have bit it off and shoved it down his throat. I wish some man would try that on me. I hear you, Thor. Sick. I'm so sorry, love. Thank you for being here. And I apologize anybody that this triggered heavily. I really felt like this was something that was really important. This is what we do in the missing community. And these girls still have not been found. And we see so many cases that have come out of California lately. And a lot of these cases we don't hear about how long were they kept at the taxpayers' expense. From 1979 up until a few years ago. There's Maya showing some love. Thank you for taking it. Absolutely. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. I've been invested in this. Where did you get the tapes? I would like to hear them, but not really. It's kind of creepy. Reddit is a good rabbit hole to get into. Beware when you get on Reddit. Thank you for replay crew, Dandy. I appreciate you. Love you, love. Feel like you need a moment of silence? Take a moment. Self-care, guys. Self-care. I always say anytime I'm doing one of these lives that's this gruesome content, make sure you do self-care, guys. True Crime Web, if you guys are not subbed up to Steve, let me drop his link. I dropped his link in the beginning, but I'm going to drop it again since he's in here. Thank you so much for coming in, Steve. I actually was in your live and ducked out a few minutes early because you usually run an hour-long live, so I set mine at 9:05 so I could finish up your live. But if you guys are not subbed up to Steve, please sub up to Steve because Steve is amazing. Steve, this is a case that my beautiful daughter-in-law, Maya, that's in chat with us, shared with me. This is the Toolbox Killers, 1979, out of California. 2 of the girls are still missing. This is a cold case. I was actually going to text you about this. I've been very busy this weekend because I normally clean and like do my, I keep it clean, but normally Saturdays are like my deep clean day. And tomorrow we're going to Crime Con. So I kind of had to rush around today. So I've been kind of out of it and I haven't replied to emails or anything. And I actually haven't sent emails that I needed to send. Sean, I completely understand because you're fighting for those who don't get justice for these poor girls. Could go through, at least we could do is listen. And I'm going to tell you, if you guys go digging down rabbit holes and you look for this audio, be very aware that what you're going to listen to is disgusting. You had court reporters running out and vomiting. It's so important, Mom, to being awareness can save someone's life. It really can. That's bloody 40 odd years. Yeah. How old am I? 44? Yeah, I was born in June of 1979, y'all. And fun fact. So when my mother was pregnant with me, probably about a month before these girls were brutally murdered, my mother was in California. So inadvertently, I was there. And there's Steve's link, guys. If you're not subbed up, make sure you hit that link and sub up to True Crime Web. Amazing channel. Much love and respect to Steve. Thank you so much for all you do, Steve. You mean the world to me. Steve is awesome. He's a retired investigator and he is amazing person that does amazing work. And he does a lot of boots on the ground. He's working the Delphi case. His cup runneth over. He's got D.R. Kuntz that he's working on. I couldn't even begin to tell you all the amazing work that Steve does. The blonde woman, I watched her documentary. That's Bland. She's a private investigator, and I did reach out to her. I would really like to get her on panel, but I'm still kind of a smaller channel. So a lot of times, people... Let's see, Nightbot drop checking convention says a lot for her prayers and wellness and healing. Asked to be able to return soon. We miss her very much. Checking Convictions has a lot going on. I'm not going to get into her personal life, but she has a lot going on. I love Linda. If you're not subbed up to Linda, make sure that you do sub up to Linda because Linda is amazing and her cup runneth over as well. And Steve, if you're still here in chat, this is the Toolbox Murders. And it's definitely worth looking into if you're not familiar with it. And just so I can show you guys how much I love and respect my community, I did go ahead and I grabbed the Toy Box Murders. And I'm going to pull this up just so I can show that I've got this ready. I got it ready. And this will be the next one that I dive into taking a look at. I kind of read on it earlier. These guys are sickos. They were true sickos. And I've been so busy, I actually forgot that I'd looked into this. And here's another article. But like I said, this will probably be my next deep dive that I do. Yeah, definitely, Steve. Definitely check this out. It's a cold case. The two girls are still missing, and their family's still actively looking for them. Let me pull their pictures back up, guys. I want to make sure that I'm sharing the victims, because a lot of times in these cases, and even as a creator myself, I always want to remind myself not to forget the reason why we're here, and not to let their memories fade away. Because, I mean, without the victims, we wouldn't be here being a voice for the voiceless. And that's what we are, as a voice for the voiceless. Laura Brand is the private investigator that we watched, the blonde-headed lady. She interviewed him in prison. Brand traveled to San Quentin prison, where Bittaker was held on death row, to finally speak to him in person. He ended up drawing her a map where he put Hall and Schaefer's bodies, as well as where he hid crucial evidence that tipped off Norris' arrest, including the missing tape of Gillum's torture, Brand said. And again, guys, Miss Hall and Miss Schaefer have still to this day never been found. It's heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. This case grabbed me in the guts, and I really wanted to share this with you guys. And I really appreciate everybody that's here. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe, smash that bell so you don't miss the next one. Good night, Dolly Bear. Thank you so much for being here, honey. And you're so welcome. Without you guys, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. Everybody's telling Dolly Bear to sleep well. Thank you, Dandy. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I really do, because this is what I want to be, as a voice for the voiceless. I'm really excited to go to CrimeCon tomorrow so I can meet a lot of these really awesome creators and detectives and investigators, and Nick Mick's there, and all these wonderful people that I sit behind my laptop and I watch. And I'm just so excited about actually being able to rub elbows with some really amazing people. Like I said, I've been honored to meet Steve and go have coffee, and that was amazing. And I mean, what we all do here together, we're all one big family. We really are. We're one big family, and we're a voice for the voiceless. That's what we are. And you guys know how I feel. We know what causes these situations.
Let's see, I don't know. Let me think. Let me knock on Mr. Noggin. Who could trick us into doing that? Could have been Satan.
And as always, I don't want to forget our missing. So I run this video so we can remember our babies. And there's so many more. Oakley, Harmony, all of our indigenous, Monkey. Summer's still missing. Cody, missing. These are just a few from 2022. Families with sleepless nights. Please share their faces. Please share their names. And anytime you cover a case like this, guys, remember, these are families. These are families. These are mothers and daughters and brothers and fathers and sisters with sleepless nights. They don't get to hug their loved one. They can't pick up their cell phone and message their family and tell them how much they love them and tell them how much they miss them, because they gained their wings way too early. Yes, we should meet up at CrimeCon 2024. If everything works out like I want it to, I'm going to try to have a booth at CrimeCon 2024. I did not leak this. Surviving the Survivor leaked it. But CrimeCon is going to be in Nashville, Tennessee next year. And if my kids are still lurking in here, I raised my kids in Nashville. I lived in Nashville, Tennessee for 25 years. That's my stomping grounds. My best friend's actually a music producer, and he does the Emmys and stuff like that. So I'm super excited to be able to give him a big old huge hug. Let's see what he said. Linda Sadar kill. This girl kicks me hard. There's my email if you guys ever want to hit me up. I'll start saving. See you at CrimeCon. I might surprise you. I would love that. I would love that. I want to go so bad. I really do. Like I already told Mr. Sunshine that get ready for it. May of 2024, we're going to be in Nashville, Tennessee. Because like I said, that's my hometown. It's not my hometown, but it's where I raised my kids. Let's see, this says Maya. I'm still creeping. There's my tater. Oh yeah, we're going. We're going. We're going to meet and greet. We have to. We have to. We definitely have to meet and greet, guys. But I love everybody and thank you so much for being here. And thank you for everybody that comes in and replay cruise. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. Share out this video so we can share these beautiful girls' faces and bring awareness. Because even though this was 1979, these monsters still walk among us. So many of these cases don't have justice. And in my opinion, these girls never got justice. They were allowed to die in prison. And that's not fair. But we all know if we sit around and bitch about how the system's broken and we don't do anything about it, what can you do? While Mr. Sunshine was laying in the hospital from his wreck, I'm sitting there writing bills and sending them into the state of Florida and talking to governor's offices. And, hopefully those will either get put up this month or next month. There's only 7 slots where bills can be put in that are brought from the community. So hopefully those will get put in. And thank you all for being here. And I love you too. And I can't wait to hear your Aussie accent in person, ma'am. I love you, love you, love you. Throwing out that Aussie love, Mickey. But guys, as always, I love everybody for being here. And you guys are all very, very special to me. And you mean the world to me. And I appreciate my great community and how everybody is so amazing. And everybody is so great. And you guys.
Welcome.
You for being here. You mean the world to me. But I'm going to end this because I do need to get to bed because I have to get up super early in the morning. So I love you all. Much respect, much love. Be a voice for the voiceless. Always remember, if you see something, say something. It takes a village to raise a child. Never give up. And always know, a tangled web we weave when the hills are filled with receipts, deceits, and dirty sheets. Peace out, Girl Scouts. Love you, Mecky.